Hello friends, welcome to Online Web Tutor. I am Sanjay. Inside this video session, we'll discuss a topic of CodeIgniter 4, and that will be what is migration and why use it inside application. Topic is very interesting and very simple to understand that what is migration and how basically it is useful inside a CodeIgniter 4 application. So we'll discuss about this topic in great detail from scratch. So I will back into official website of CodeIgniter, that is CodeIgniter.com. So I will install first a CodeIgniter for setup into a local system, and I will prefer Composer installation. So I will go inside this download button, click on download button. It will redirect to a download page. So here we can see a section of CodeIgniter 4. We can install a CodeIgniter for setup by using manual installation. It means we need to download first a zipped folder and setup into a local system. But I will prefer Composer installation. So before installing a project of CodeIgniter 4 using Composer, please make sure that inside your system Composer must be installed. So how to verify? Back to terminal. I will type as simple as that Composer. It's a command. If I press enter, it will provide a command list. If this screen will appear, it means that Composer has been installed. Back to browser. So I will click on user guide. It has redirected into a documentation page. Go inside getting started, installation, click on Composer installation. If I scroll down, so inside this documentation, here we can see a command of Composer. So as simple as that, I will copy this command, back to slide, pasting it here. So this is the command what we will execute to create a CodeIgniter for setup. Composer space create -project space CodeIgniter 4 / app starter, and this is all about our application folder name. So we are using create -project command of Composer, and this is all about the syntax to create a CodeIgniter for setup. So let's say that I want to change the project name. So here let's say CI4-tutorials. So I will copy this command, back to terminal. Let's clear this console. So we are inside this folder. I will paste that command, press enter. It will take hardly 1 minute to install all about this installation. So wait for a while. And now as we can see that setup has been installed. Let's again clear console, and if I type ls to list all folders and files, so now we can see that here we have a folder called CI4-tutorials. So if I go inside that folder, CI4-tutorials, now we are inside our project setup. Back to folder structure. Now here we can see that this is the folder what we have downloaded using Composer. Go inside that. So inside this project setup, we have multiple folders and multiple files. So let's open this project into any of the editor. So I will choose VS Code editor. So successfully, I have imported our project folder into my VS Code. Now let's execute this application. So what I will do, this is the project what we have opened right here inside this terminal. So we will use Spark CLI command. So I will type php spark. If I type and press enter, remember we are inside our project folder. So once we type, this is the command php spark CLI provides, and this is the newest added feature inside CodeIgniter 4. So if we go inside our CodeIgniter section, we can see here we have a command called serve. Look at a single line description. It launches the CodeIgniter PHP development server. So we will use the inbuilt development server of CodeIgniter by using Spark CLI command called serve. So here, let's say PHP spark serve, press enter. Now as you can see that application is started at localhost 8080 port. So to access application, I will copy this link, back to browser. Let's open a new tab. I will paste that URL. And now as you can see that we are getting welcome to CodeIgniter 4.3.5. So this is the application default landing page. Now successfully we have downloaded and installed a CodeIgniter for setup into our local system. Now let's understand all about the concept of migration and what is the use of that inside application. Let's back to slide. So here, if I will remove that, so in the very first step, we have downloaded and set up a CodeIgniter for application into system. So before working with migration, we need to connect a database with application. Back to application. So here I will open .env file, but once you download a project setup into your system, you will see a file called env. So first thing first, we have to rename from env to .env. So right click on rename and put a dot in front of that name. Now this .env file is useful and it is now accessible inside this application. So I will click on that file. It will contain all about our environment variables. So we need to do two changes here. First, I will remove the comment symbol from the CI environment. So just remove this hash symbol from here, and from production, I will change it to development. Now next, here we have our database group. So I will remove the comment symbol from each of the line and we are using default database group. So here we need to pass our database connection string values. So in this case, we are using localhost. So let's create a database first. Back to phpMyAdmin, click databases, and let's say that ci4 underscore migration, or let's say ci4 underscore videos underscore tutorials. I will copy the database name, click on create button, database created, back to application. So localhost is okay. In case of database name, this is the database what we have created. In my case, the username is admin and password is admin@123. In your case, these details will be different. So successfully, now once we pass these database details right here inside this database group, now we can work with our database. So what is migration? Migrations are those classes files inside a CodeIgniter for application. By the help of that, we can create a table structure inside our database. So to create a migration file, we will use php spark CLI command. And once we create migration files for this application, automatically it will go and store inside this app, database and migrations folder. So right now it is empty. Let's go inside terminal. First let's close this development server and I will type php spark, press enter. From this command list I will go inside generators, and inside this generator section we can see a command called make migration. Look at single line description, it generates a new migration file, and by the help of that file we will create table structure inside our database. So let's use that. So php spark make migration, and after this command we need to pass our migration class name. So let's say that we want to create a students table. So I will pass the table name as create students, means this is the class name, create students table. If I press enter, now we can see that this is the class generated by application inside migrations folder, and this is the naming convention of that file. Let's go back to application, go inside migrations, and here as we can see that file has been now generated. First let's discuss all about the naming convention. So how basically the naming convention decided? Let's go inside config folder, and inside this config folder we should see a file called migrations.php. So let's open that. So inside migrations.php we can see enabled equals to true. These are some conditional variables. By the help of that we are using our migrations concept or migrations command inside for this application. So enabled, it means migrations are accessible for this application. If I scroll down, here we have a table called migrations. So once we work with migrations and when we create the table structure inside database, migrations will automatically create a default table called migrations. This table is useful to keep track all the tables what we have generated and roll back into a migrations command. And the last variable we have called timestamp format. So we can see that inside this variable we have the value as y-m-d and his. So this is all about a timestamp format. So if we go again to this naming convention of this file, so we can see that this is the naming convention what is generated before creating that file. And after this timestamp format, here we have a name called create_students_table.php, and remember this is the name called create_students_table what we passed while creating that migration file. So this is all about the logic behind creating a migration file. Now let's go inside that file. So here we have two methods called a up method and down method. Up method is useful when we try to create the table structure. It means this method is going to actually take all the fields and decide the table skeleton. And by the help of down method, it will go and drop a table from database. So once we execute migrate command, it means creating a table structure inside database, up method will be used. And when we use rollback command, it means dropping a table from database. So in that case, down method will be used. So let's use first all about up method to actually define a table structure. So inside this method, we will use an object called this forge. So this forge, and before that, let's go back to slide. So here we will create a table called students, and in this table we want columns as ID, name, email, let's say phone number, and finally let's say created at. So these are the columns we want to be created inside students table. Back to application. So here this forge, and we will use a method called add field. What is the use of that we'll understand in a second. So here the next method we'll use by the help of this forge object, and it will be add primary key. And one more method inside this for this up method, this forge, and we'll use create table. So we want to create students table. So here we have a students. Now go inside this add field. By the help of add field method, actually we will define the table columns and the columns attributes. So here ID, name, email, phone, and created at. So these are the columns what we discussed to be created inside students table. Back to application. Now we need to set the attributes. It means the data type, length of the fields, and other attributes. So here we need to define an array here for ID. Let's say type equals to int. It means this field is going to contain the integer value. Next we'll define constant. Constant, it means the length of this field. So I will define 5 here. Next let's say unsigned equals to true. And also we wanted that this ID column should be a auto increment column. So auto underscore increment equals to true. So finally here we have the attributes of this ID column. Now next let's go and define for this name field. So here type equals to varchar. It means this field is going to contain the string value. Next we'll have constant equals to let's say 50 characters. It means the length of this name field will be 50 characters. And one more attribute, that is null equals to false. It means that this field is not going to accept the null values. Value of this field must be required. Now next I will copy the same attributes, go inside for this email address. Let's say that this email field is also going to contain string value, and this time let's say the length of this field equals to 80 characters and null equals to false. It means this field is required. Now for this phone number, It is also going to contain string values, but for this length of this field, let's say 25 characters, and null equals to true, it means this field is going to contain or accept the null value. And finally here for created at, so what we want, let's say that whenever we insert any new row inside our students table, automatically created at will pick the server timestamp value. So we want that by default the current timestamp value should be created with this created at field. Date time, it means the data type of this created at column will be date time, and we want that the default value will be current timestamp. All we have done all about the table structure and the column attributes. Now next, let's go inside this add primary key method. As the name clears that, we need to actually decide that which columns we want to be a primary key. So we want that the ID column is perfect to be created as a primary key. So inside this add primary key method, I will pass the column name. So finally, we have completed all about the code logics of this up method. Here we have the columns as ID, name, email, phone number, and created at. And from all these columns, ID will be a primary key. Now next, we'll use our Spark CLI command to migrate this migration file. Back to terminal. So here I will type php spark, press enter. So if we go inside our database group, so inside this section, we should see some commands of migrations. And here we have migrate, migrate refresh, migrate rollback, and migrate status. So I will go and execute our first command, that is migrate status. This command is useful to list all the migrations what we have inside application. So what I will do, php spark, if I will type migrate status, press enter. Now as you can see that inside our application, this is the single file what we have created, and that migration yet not migrated, which means that we didn't create any table inside our database. So let's use migrate command to migrate our migration and create a dynamic table inside database. So php spark migrate, if I press enter, and here we have some error. And I think that we are doing some mistake inside our table definition. So ID, here we have constant, type equals to varchar constant. Okay, here we have some spelling mistake inside for this constant key. I will copy, let's paste for this email field and for this phone number. So once we do all these changes, save this file, back to terminal. Let's clear our console first, and I will execute php spark migrate, press enter. And now as you can see, running all new migrations and migrations complete. If I type php spark migrate status, now we can see that our migration now migrated. Let's back to our connected database. So this is the database we had created. Click on structure. And now we can see that inside our database we have two tables. As we had discussed that once we use the concept of migration, it will create a default table called migrations. And this is the table structure what we had generated by using our migrations concept. Let's go inside this table, and also inside this table, click on structure. So inside this table called students, here are the columns and the properties, that is name equals to varchar 50 characters, email 80 characters, and these two fields like name and email is not accepting the null value, but the phone number which has 25 characters and it is accepting a null value. Next we have created at, which has date time, and also the default value equals to current timestamp. It means whenever we insert any new row inside this students table, automatically the value of this created at and ID column will be filled automatically for this row. Now let's go inside our migrations table, click on structure. So this is the default skeleton what application created. If I go So as we can see that inside the migrations table, this is the migration file which we have migrated. So successfully, this is all about the concept of PHP Spark Migrate status and PHP Spark Migrate. Now let's say that I want to drop a table from database. So in that case, we need to use a rollback command. So if I type PHP Spark, let's press enter, go inside database section. Now here we have a command called migrate rollback. So automatically when we execute this command, it will go and run the downs method, means the down method of migration file. And inside our down method, we don't have any code. So inside this, I need to write a code. By the help of that, we'll drop that table from database. So this is the migration file for a students table. So what we want, this forge, and I will write a code called drop table, and inside this we need to pass the table name. So once we pass the table name, and if we use the rollback command, automatically it will execute this down method and the students table automatically will be dropped from database. Let's see in action. Back to terminal. So PHP Spark Migrate, if I type rollback, press enter. Now as we can see, done rolling back migrations. Again if I type command called PHP Spark Migrate status, press enter. Now we can see that we have a single migration file yet not migrated, because this command is basically deleted that table entry from migrations table as well. If I go inside our migrations table, so right now as you can see, this is the entry, but once we executed rollback command, the rollback command dropped that entry from this table, so we don't have any row, so that's why these fields are empty. But once we use PHP Spark Migrate, it will go and execute and also do an entry inside migrations table. And once we type status command, so we can see that these are the values which is coming from this migrations table. So successfully, now we have the concept of, if I go here, let's type the command called PHP Spark. Now we have the concept of migrate, migrate rollback and migrate status. Now we have one more command, that is migrate refresh. So as we know that to create a table structure inside database, we need to use migrate command. And also if we want to drop a table from database, we need to use migrate rollback command. But in some cases, let's say that if I go inside this application, let's say that one more field I want to add inside this table. If I will copy, put it here, let's say designation varchar 50 characters null equals to false. So in this table structure, we have added a designation column. So if we want to actually create this structure inside database, what are the steps that we have to follow? First we need to go and roll back this table. After rollback, then we need to create the table structure inside database. But here we have a command called migrate refresh. Once we execute migrate refresh command, automatically it will do the rolling back conditions. It means first it drops the table and automatically it recreates the table. Means instead of executing two different commands, a single command can do all the work. If I go here and let's say that PHP Spark migrate refresh, if I press enter, first it will roll back that table from database and again it will recreate that. So as we can see that instead of executing two different commands, the single command actually doing the same two conditions and the same two logics into that. If I go inside this table structure, let's click on a structure again. Now we can see that we have one more column called designation. So successfully, by the help of the single video, now we have the complete idea about what is migration and why basically it is important inside application. Let's say that we have an application and inside that application we have 100 number of tables. if we don't have the concept of migration for that application and we want to transfer that project from one server to another server, again we need to go inside our MySQL, phpMyAdmin, then we need to go inside export section, we need to export all the tables and then we need to import into different server. But if we have the concept of migrations, automatically we need to go inside that server, set up that project first and execute php spark migrate command. So automatically if database will be connected, those tables will get created inside that server. So this is the too much useful case of using migrations. So migrations are a very efficient tool. By the help of that we can play with the table structure. So successfully, now we have the main concern of migrations now completed inside this video. So for this video session guys, thank you for watching and have a great day.